This is the second live in a series of presentations about change your life experience and change your experience of the world. Now just give me a moment while I set this up, because I want to invite other people into the live, just making sure that everything is as it should be. Just bear with me. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to share this into the Mr. GTV Facebook channel. So I'll just tell you guys that if you want to talk to me, if you want to contact me, you can go to my website, which is mrmikegarner.com, or you can find me on Facebook, Mr. Mike Garner, or that's my brand. My name is Michael Garner, and there's a Michael Garner Facebook page, and also the Mr. GTV Facebook page is probably the best place to get me, and you can inbox me anywhere. I am currently living in Thailand, coming back to the UK, but at the moment I'm in Thailand, and I am available. You can call me anytime. If you want to chat, I'm here for that. So just signing in here. I apologise if this is a bit boring, but there's nobody watching me anyway at the moment, so I feel there's some amazing things that are going to come, but you realise that you've got to have an audience to make this worthwhile, so I'm just inviting my audience in. So there you are, that's done. So thank you for joining me either live. At the moment I can't see anybody live. Let me see if I can just live. Okay, hang on. So let me just sign in. Right, I'm not able to see any live chat at the moment, but that's no problem because there's nobody here. Just wet my whistle and then away we go. So I want to say first of all that I hope that you enjoyed part one, and if you haven't watched part one, which was posted yesterday, then please watch that. But this stands alone, and all my processes stand alone, but basically I come from the same premise, the same belief system, that you are sovereign, that you are God. That's not blasphemous. I am spiritual, religious. I have beliefs in a higher power, but I believe that we're connected to that higher power, that we're not separate from it, and that the whole of society is set up in a way to remove your power. Now, I'm going to be making some very big statements, and I'm not asking you to agree with me. I'm just offering this for your consideration. I've worked in energy and consciousness, or with energy and consciousness, for over 40 years. And I've been empowering people since I was 17 years of age, where I used to run a youth club, and then I run martial arts organisations, and I went from martial arts to healing arts. I was a fourth Dan, and then I started on a spiritual journey, having learnt Qigong. And when you get into the energetics of the human condition and you understand the way that your mind works, as I study sports psychology. My daughter actually has a degree in sports psychology, and I went into Llandrillo Technical College when my daughter was a student there, and helped some of the students in a couple of the classes with motivation and understanding the process of the mind. And that took me into my own study. I was particularly interested in energy because I was a martial artist, and I used to like to watch Kung Fu on television, and I was fascinated by the way that small people, Chinese people, Asian people, could develop so much power. And the power comes from your heart, and your love comes from your heart, and your energy comes from your heart. And what's interesting is that when you get into the science of it, because I don't just believe this stuff by faith, I need evidence. And I found the evidence through certain people that I really respect. Michael Shea was one of them, who run Young International. Master Toddy was another one. And there was quite a few prolific martial artists in my day when I was learning, and then I started to coach, and I was a referee, and I used to bring, well, I probably had about 200 juniors and about 80 seniors in my clubs. And pushing people to the limits through martial arts, you learn a little bit about human potential. And you also, as you get to my age, realise through life that a lot of human potential is stifled. In other words, it's not encouraged. In fact, it's discouraged. What's going on at the moment is a perfect example. I'm going to be very careful what I say because I don't want to get deplatformed. I said that in session 1, and I say that all the time on most of my videos, that if you really want to know what I think, we need a chat personally. Because if I put it out onto Facebook or YouTube or any platform, I have been deleted. I have had so many strikes and warnings which I've had to appeal against. So as a facilitator, as an empowerer, as a holistic therapist and a clinical psychologist and a corporate hypnotist, I've got very strong views about the way the mind works and the way that you and I work. And I help people overcome all the obstacles that stand in the way of the health, of the happiness and success in life and business. So you can't preach and teach this stuff without having worked with hundreds of people, thousands of students, hundreds of clients, and I've hypnotized 400 or 500 people at a time in Chester, Northgate Arena. I've done lots of workshops and seminars, so I speak from experience when I say that people are highly suggestible. Intelligent people with good imaginations who can follow instructions and have got a reasonable level of concentration are very good hypnotic subjects. And the television puts you into hypnosis, as does driving, as does going to sleep at night. That's hypnosis, same as daydreams. And what you've got is you've got a susceptible population who watch television and listen to the radio and are influenced by advertising. And a long time ago, when television was invented, the government, through the BBC and other broadcast organisations all over the world, realised that they could influence and inform or misinform the population and persuade them, suggest to them to buy this, not buy this, watch this, don't watch that, say this, don't say that. They gave them almost like the guidelines for life. And of course, you know, in the 40s and 50s, when black and white televisions came out and then colour televisions, and then we got LCD screens and big smart televisions, as technology advanced, and you know, we ended up with computers that were massive, and then they got smaller and smaller and smaller, and now a smartwatch can do anything that one of these massive computers could do 30 years ago. Technology advanced so fast that we haven't caught up as a population. But trust me, the government know exactly what they're doing. They've got behavioural insight teams, and they've been working with broadcasting programmes with an agenda before we've caught up with the agenda. And it's very obvious now that there is an agenda with what's going on globally in the world, and I won't say the words, but you know what it is. And the government, etymology to govern your mentality, government, govern your mentality, are broadcasting programmes all day long that we watch in a trance, in a daydream, in a hypnotic state, and we nod and we agree, and we're being conditioned constantly. School conditions you. The whole education system is designed to condition you, to get you ready to go to work, to be a good citizen. Now, I went through that system, but can you see, if you're sort of like an adult, you'll have noticed a difference in the emphasis in so many things in education curriculums now. I mean, the way that teachers discipline children, the way that children learn, and at the moment the way that their learning is being hampered by regulations and the way that children are these days. I mean, there's always a shift in generations, but have you noticed how massive it's been in the last decade? Maybe the last 20 years. In fact, this millennium. Since the year 2000, there's been a massive change, and that's not by accident. It's not by normal evolution. It's speeded up. The change is accelerating, 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 accelerating. And what I'm going to tell you, you might accept, or you might think that I've got my tin foil hat on as a conspiracy theorist, but I'm not saying anything that can't be checked out, although it's hard to sometimes find these facts now because they've all been fact-checked by fact-checkers who get big fat checks, who are paid to control the information and to put a bias on it which only agrees with the mainstream media's view. I think I've got 2 viewers now. Let's just see if I can see your comments. I'll just tell you guys, I don't know for why, but I can't see your comments. So if you're commenting, thank you for watching. Stick with me. This is going to get good. So I'm not ignoring it, I just can't see your comments. I think it's just the way that at the moment Facebook are conducting the lives. Just cannot see your comments. Just bear with me. Let's see if I can. Let's see if I can find your comments. No, I'm not able to see your comments at the moment. Hang on. Okay, I think I've got Catherine's comment there. Okay, can you give me a thumbs up if you're watching? Can you give me a thumbs up if you're watching? I'm learning this platform, but I know my subject, but I'm not much of a YouTuber, but I'm getting there, so bear with me. So there is an agenda, and it's not a conspiracy, and you can check it out, but a lot of the information that was freely available on the internet is also being deleted and fact-checked, and it's getting to the point now where it's hard to find evidence of the agenda, but it's actually called Agenda 21. And there are certain government think tanks that are unelected, undemocratic, selected millionaires and billionaires and high society movers and shakers, including the royal family and certain bankers and corporate CEOs and tech companies who are running the show. Some call them the Illuminati, some call them the cabal, some call them the shadow government. But you'll know who they are because they all go to Davos. All these millionaires go every year to the World Economic Forum, and they all listen to Klaus Schwab. And if you look at his book called The Great Reset, the 2020-2030 reset, we're pretty much experiencing it now. And it was all set out, it's all there on the Georgia Guidestones. And around about 1999, they held this massive conference in Egypt where they talked about everything 20 years ago that's happening now. In fact, you know, you only have to watch TED Talks to Bill Gates and to the stuff that Fauci was saying and Bill Gates was saying, and a lot of the other movers and shakers like Elon Musk, and there's plenty of them up there, and also pretty much Prince Charles as well, because they're all part of this elite group, and most of them aren't elected, and also people in NATO and some of the Trilateral Commission and the Bilderberg Group, and all these organisations, and if you never heard them, Google every one of them, you'll find that you won't be invited, I won't be invited, there's no television cameras, and all these millionaires who are trying to save the planet go to these places in the jets, private jets, and gas guzzling cars to save the planet, and they decide how they're going to shift society because there is an agenda. And most of those people are connected to companies who are directly benefiting from the legislation that they're deciding to bring in upon us. You know, during the pandemic, all the PPE companies were bought, and the sat on the board of directors was most of people in the House of Lords, past politicians and present politicians, and politicians' friends and family, and we know about that. That's been in the press. And they've benefited massively. There's been more trillionaires created during the pandemic at the same time as people like you and me have been on furlough or unemployed, or we've lost family members, or we've lost loved ones, and our businesses have gone bankrupt, and our whole lives have been changed through the legislation, not through the disease, I'll use that word, but by the legislation to so-called control the disease. That's a completely different conversation. But the point is that the movers and shakers, the social influencers who hired behavioural insight teams called SpyBee, all Googleable, done my homework because I'm fascinated by it, has had a massive influence on all aspects of society. Every part of your life and my life has changed in the last 2 years, and there's been a massive change since the year 2000. And that was the plan. And you can Google Lockstep, which is the rollout, step by step, of what we've seen, this movement towards more control, more legislation, more restrictions, more limitations, more of your freedoms being removed, and the ability to say what you mean and mean what you say is being removed. And you've almost got to be like a solicitor now and guard what you say. There's been comedians deleted, and they're trying all the time to put you against me and me against you. Either they're using race, they're using sexuality, they're using religion, they're using sport, they're using the class system, political system, religion. They really want to divide us so they can divide and rule. And you must have seen that. You must be aware of this. Now, as a psychologist, I'm watching, or I was watching, the Prime Minister's daily briefings or the government daily briefings, and it was all NLP. It was all neuro-linguistic programming. Wash your hands, wear a mask, keep your distance. All these 3 logo sound bites, and the colours, red zones, green zones, like the traffic lights. And it's all consistent with mental programming, NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. There was one stage where they said, act as if you've got the virus, act as if you've got it. Well, that's the sort of thing I say to a hypnotic subject. Imagine that your hand's stuck to your head, and feel it, make it real. And on stage, they won't be able to get the hand off their head because they're acting as if it's stuck to the head with the super glue that I've suggested. So it's very easy, if you hear these things and all this fear's coming at you, which I talked about in part 1, to start to believe this bullshit, and for you to become affected by it because it's in your mind. And all your feelings start in your mind. It starts with a thought, which is psychology, and it ends up in your biology. When I have clients in front of me, I say to them, if you want to know what your health's going to be like next year, what's your emotional life like this year? I'll say that again. If you want to know what your health's going to be like next year, what's your emotional and mental state this year? And if people come to me with sickness and disease for Reiki, which is what I do, I'm a Reiki master with a huge lineage beneath me that my daughter now runs in the UK and I run online. But we've been healing since 1987. I'm running Reiki lineages before it was fashionable. And the people that come to me, I always want to know what was going on last year, because they'll be experiencing physical symptoms based on their dramas and traumas and stories last year. And in part 1, I was talking about stories. that your history is his story, your story, her story. And what's happening with these programs on television, they're making you watch stories, and it becomes part of your story if you buy into it. And that's the kicker, that's the secret. You've got to be selective what you buy into it. In session 1, I was talking about detaching, that when you're looking at the world or watching television, you've got to remember that it's on a screen out there, over there. There's the television screen over there. If I'm looking at my iPad, this is my iPad mini. Just turn it on. This is my iPad mini. And if I'm watching a film on my iPad mini, the film's there. And if I get involved in it and believe that I'm in the film, in other words, if it's a horror film and I get frightened, or it's a comedy film and I start laughing my head off, or it's a romantic thing and I get moved, it's upsetting or tear-jerking, then I'm buying into the film. And a good film producer will create a film that you can immerse yourself in. But you've got to remember that you're actually sat on your sofa or your favourite armchair, or at the cinema, in the cinema seat, and that's on the screen. And what I suggested in part 1 is that you remember at all times that the world is a screen, that the world is a stage, and that you can decide to detach, to step back and create what I call a gap between what's happening out there and your perception of it here. That it's all about your perception. I said in session 1 that life is not what you're looking at or what happens in front of you, it's your response to it. So you can be watching something on television that's supposed to make you laugh, or somebody tells you a joke, but it's your decision if you laugh. If you're aware, and if you're mindful, and if you're conscious and awake in that moment. Otherwise you're just running automatically, and you'll laugh at things that you've always laughed at, cry at things you've always cried at, and you're scared of things that you've always been scared of. But when I do hypnotic change work, transactional analysis and CBT, then I change people. I get them aware of those automatic knee-jerk responses where they're living on repeat. And if they want to change something, they've got to become conscious. They've got to wake up. And we've got to wake up with this world situation at the moment, or any situation at the moment. Whether it's a business situation, problem in your relationship, challenges in your relationship, challenges in your family, challenges with your finances, challenges at work, challenges with your health. Wherever you've got challenges, wake up, pay attention, and then make some new decisions. Because those challenges are getting at you. And I talked in session 1 about the difference between the world coming at you and the world coming from you. And you want to be in a position of control where the world comes from you and not reacting, but acting. Knowing what you want as an outcome and then being the producer of it and directing it in the moment so you get the outcome that you want, so you can become a superstar in your own life, a legend in your own lifetime. Now, it was tough enough before the governments decided to take over the world. And this has been a global shift because it's been globally managed. I could talk to you about that, but I don't want to get deplatformed and you might not agree. I'm not trying to tell you to agree with me. I'm just saying that you must see at the moment. I mean, look what's happening in Canada with Trudeau. And if you wondered why other governments have not said anything, not heard Boris Johnson talking about the plight of the peaceful protesters in Canada and all those lovely families that get trampled on by military horses and police horses. I mean, where's the love and compassion and the care for the community by the government, who at the end of the day are public servants? Because the illusion is that the public servants. That isn't true. That's an illusion that the government want you to believe. They want you to believe that we live in a democracy. That isn't true. Whoever you vote for, you always get the government in. And I said in session 1 that whether it's left-wing government or right-wing government, and it's a metaphor about a bird, left-wing or right-wing, it's the same bird. It's still the government, just a different face. The agenda just keeps going. Whoever's running it, they'll all have a different slant and a different personality, and all you're doing is choosing a different personality who operates in a different way, but the same agenda is rolling out, and it's Agenda 21, because they've all agreed, and nobody in government who doesn't sign up to Agenda 21 and other government think tank agendas, you can't stay in government if you're not on that page. You might go into government as a radical thinker, or you might go in thinking you're a revolutionary if you're in the Labour Party, or you've got some great ideas for the Conservatives or the Lib Dems or the Scottish National Party. But trust me, if you want to get to the top, to get along, you've got to go along. And most of the people who are in government, who are there to govern your mentality, have come through public schools, whether it's left wing or right wing, or somewhere in the middle, and they've all been groomed to sit on those seats in the House of Lords and at Westminster, Houses of Parliament, and they won't be there unless they're sure that they play the part. And there are some people who don't play the part, and they get rid of them. Donald Trump didn't play the part, he played his own part. To a large extent, Boris Johnson also is a bit of a rogue, and that's why he's been discredited and his days are numbered. And anybody that sort of goes against the agenda of the shadow government gets kicked out or gets killed. You only have to follow the Clinton story in America, and anybody that crossed the Clintons, who are now running the Clinton Foundation, are probably more powerful than the White House, who are running Biden behind the scene like a puppet. And Obama. Most of the things that Obama said he didn't do. Most of the things that Clinton said he didn't do, and you couldn't trust a word that came out of his mouth or her mouth. And if you just Google Clinton deaths, there's a trail of people who've been killed in suspicious circumstances, as happens in Britain, but it's all hush-hushed because they own the newspaper, they own the media outlets. So anybody who doesn't get along, doesn't go along, they get demoted, disgraced, or they get colluded so that they have to go along, which is what's happened, in my opinion, with the Prince Andrew story with Epstein. He compromised himself, very foolish, did some very bad things, hasn't got the brains he was born with respect. And that happens to so many high-powered business people, where they get into what's called honey traps by the CIA in America and by British intelligence in the UK. And then they own them, and they can get them to do exactly what they want because they've got the dirty on them. So there's a mass manipulation going on to control the population, and it's never been different, but it's so prolific and so obvious at the moment. So how is this helpful? Well, I said to you, first of all, that you've got to imagine that you're viewing it on a screen, and you've got to step back from it. We can't stop what happens in the world going on in the world. If you can, then do something positive about it. I believe that we will solve this problem metaphysically and not physically. That we're not part of the government. I wouldn't want to be part of the government. The education system is the same, that's corrupt. It's not there to educate you, it's there to indoctrinate you. If you think that anything that you learnt at school stood you in good stead to be a balanced adult, then tell me about it, because it wasn't my experience or most of my clients. I mean, who wants to know about algebra? Who's used algebra since the day they left school? And the history that you were told isn't true. History's being rewritten at the moment. The health service at the moment is under threat, and it always has been. And if you believe that the pharmaceutical route is the route towards good well-being, then we need another conversation, because most of the healthy stuff that you should be doing is discouraged, and they're giving you alcohol, cigarettes, which are dangerous and killers, and carcinogens in your food, and over-processed food, and crap food, and fast food. And most organic food isn't really as good as it should be, not in Britain. And there's a coffee culture, and there's a fast food culture, and most of the good stuff at the moment isn't on the shelves anyway, because part of Agenda 1, Agenda 21, is to basically stop people shopping, clear the shelves, and you've got to order online. And the most of the stuff that you order online is fast foods, processed foods, through the companies, as I said, to start with, that most of the people in the government own. Amazon is on speed dial, isn't it? You know, you can phone up and order like you can on eBay. And most of those companies are operating tax-free. And if you look at who are the shareholders and heavy investors in those companies, it's the same families. Where your local butcher and your local greengrocer and your local stores are struggling, the high street's almost dying. And basically the agenda is to have you at home and keep you at home, and have you experiencing your life through one of these devices and virtual goggles eventually, and then to connect you to it. That's an evolution which I don't want to see, but trust me, in the next 10 years we're going to see more of that. So this all sounds very depressing, I'm aware. And in a way, you should be aware, because it is very depressing if that agenda rolls out. But my process, and where I take people through my Mind Body Spirit group and my one-to-ones and all my group workshops and conversations free on Mr. GTV, is that you are very powerful, and you don't have to be part of that programming. You are a result of that programming. In other words, you've gone through it. You know, you've gone through the conditioning at school. You've probably gone through all the things that everybody else has gone through. You know, you've gone to church maybe, or whatever your religion is, and you've been told how you should behave culturally, which is all indoctrination, and what you should believe religiously, which is all indoctrination. It's all telling you, if you like, how to be, what to do, what to have, what not to have, what's right, what's wrong. And I mentioned in session 1 that it's this conversation, the difference between doing things right, which most people try to do, but unfortunately they're doing the wrong things right. Some people don't even do the right things. What they're told to do, they don't do. They break the law, or they ignore the law, or they don't care. But the things that you think you should be doing, which we're told that we should do, like pay your taxes, wash your car, cut your grass, have 3 square meals a day, work 48 weeks of the year and have 4 weeks holiday, work Monday to Friday, and then at weekend you feel weakened. This is the etymology of the language of society. That you own a house, pay your mortgage, and mortgage, etymology mortgage, is death grip. Look it up, I'm not making this stuff up. This is the hidden language that we're not taught, that it's a death grip. And in Britain you've actually got to buy 3.5 houses to pay for one, because that's the rate of interest. And when after 25 years, if your house was worth 100,000, you've probably paid 350,000. So you could have bought 3.5 houses to own one. It's all a scam. It's all hard work. It drives people to an early grave. And the national statistic is that most people die within 18 months of the day they retire. That is a fact. And actually most people die in Britain on a Monday morning. That's the thought of getting up and facing another week at work. Toil, labour, working hard to pay your taxes, cutting your grass, washing your dishes, putting your curtains up, doing things right. And there's even more laws and regulations now telling you what you should do to do things right. But that's not doing the right things. The right things should empower you and give you your control and sovereignty back, so that you can live on purpose, a fulfilling, happy life, and it might not even involve work. Who says you have to work? Who says you can't set up a business or a cooperative or trade things? But that's not even on offer in the way society is set up or the way that you've been conditioned. And during the Blairite years, where it was all new money and you could be an entrepreneur, and like Lord Sugar was, looking for an apprentice. You try and run a business now with these legislations and regulations, you could have invested thousands, millions in a hotel, and your hotel's been shut for 2 years. You're probably out of business, like theatres are and publicans are. And my son, who runs a deli, struggling now. He's been extremely flexible and come up with some great ideas to survive. Well done, Stephen, my son. And my daughter runs self-employed, helping people like I do, and she's continued, even though she's got 2 kids at home. Well done, Catherine. And many of you have struggled and changed and fought and kept it going, and even the ones that weren't able to, you kept your head above water. Well done, you as well. You are survivors. But you don't want to survive, do you? You want to thrive. And I think to thrive in a vastly changing world, you've got to understand the rules of the world, and you're not going to be told the rules of the world in the world, because the world is set up so that only a few win. There's some people at the bottom of the pyramid who can fight the way up and climb the way up, and well done, you guys. But it's not really set up for you, and it's even less set up for you now with Agenda 21 and the new legislations and the new regulations. We're moving into a world where there's going to be cars for the rich, electric cars, which all being sold on the bullshit of climate change. They started calling it global warming, but they couldn't prove that, so they just called it climate change. That's another conversation. But I remember 25 years ago, they told us all to buy diesels. So everybody bought diesels. Who owned all the diesel oil supplies? The governments. They made millions when we all bought diesel cars and ditched our petrol cars. Who was invested in the diesel car manufacturers and engine suppliers? Well, the government were. They knew what was coming and they got shares in those companies, and a lot of people got very, very rich. And we all sold our cars, and now they're telling us we can't have diesel cars. And they've just brought into Greater Manchester now a congestion tax, and it's about £10 a day. So if I was still living in Manchester, I mean, when I left the UK, I was living 30 years in Wales, even though I'm a Manchester lad. But if I was living in Manchester, it would cost me £10 a day to go to work. Who can afford that? And who can afford to skip the very long waiting list that's been created in the last 2 years with the NHS challenges? All manufactured, no justification for it, no explanation for it. There's been defunding in the NHS for years, but they're all blaming this current situation. Very convenient. They've hidden with this current situation so many government failings and actually orchestrated, manipulated government deceptions, because the government isn't who you think it is, and the education system isn't what you think it is, and none of these institutions are set up in the way that you think they are set up. Because society, the truth is that society is a tiered system to keep what's always been the case, and it was very evident in the Victorian days, the population down, and certain families, privileged elite families, not even necessarily highly educated, although most of them have gone through public school, private school, to raise their wealth and acquisitions and to suppress us. Agenda 21 states, and you can get the book, I'm not making it up, and it's a government document, it's a public document, They state that you and me are useless eaters. Useless eaters. That we are consuming too much of the world's resources and that we're living too long. If you look at the Georgia Guidestones, there's an agenda to reduce the population. So now ask, why is there world wars? What happens in world wars? The population's reduced. What happens in world pandemics? Population's reduced. Very useful for a government who don't hide the fact that we're overpopulated. In fact, it was Prince Philip who said that when he was interviewed, and you can Google this, that he wanted to come back after he died as a parasite to kill off most of the population. That was a very kind thing for him to say, wasn't it? Leading figure in our royal family, Queen's husband, who's just recently passed. Prince Charles has got the same view. He went to the World Economic Forum and said similar stuff. And Boris Johnson's dad wrote a book called The Virus 25 years ago, and you can Google it, telling the story 25 years ago of exactly what's happening now. And that's amazing, isn't it? I wonder why he was able to do that. It was because it was all planned more than 25 years ago. And as I say, if you look at TED Talks, Bill Gates talking about the next pandemic will be a virus, that they'll need to produce a vaccine, and they're already predicting what's going to come next. That there's going to be climate change lockdowns. This is from a man who has infected thousands of people in Africa, so-called testing vaccines. And that's all in the paper. So what I do is I detach myself from all these stories, whether they're true or not. I ask the question, what can I do about it? And if I can't practically do anything about it, then I detach from it practically, and I will put those issues that need shifting into my prayers. Now, I'm not religious, but I am spiritual and metaphysical, and I believe in energy and consciousness. And I believe with my mind that I can affect myself. I can use my mind to direct my molecules to create energy, well-being, health, stability and balance. And I've proven that to myself and all my clients over the last 25 years working with energy and consciousness. That your state of mind, your psychology, changes your physiology, which is your emotional equilibrium, and ultimately it changes your biology. That you are a pharmacist. In ancient times they used to call it being an alchemist. And they used to say you can change lead into gold, which I will interpret that you can actually change hell into heaven. That at the moment the world seems a bit like hell. And biblically, I don't necessarily believe in the Bible, but using it as an allegory or a metaphor or a fairy tale or a pictorial representation of potentiality, that this world was created or evolved to be like the Garden of Eden. It should have been paradise. Now, is the world paradise? Is your life paradise? Well, no. It was better before the pandemic, but it's a bit of a shit show now, isn't it? It's moving towards a hellish reality. But all it takes is a shift in consciousness to rise above it or to step back from it and to detach from the shit and to shift. Shit is S-H-I-T and shift is S-H-I-F-T. And every time I feel shit, I shift. And every time I see shit, in other words, something shit happens out there, I step back and I remember, as I said in session 1, that I'm in the cinema seat and I'm watching it on a screen and I don't let it get to me. And that's my favourite affirmation. That didn't get to me, she didn't get to me, he didn't get to me. I don't let it get to me. It can only get to me if I give it permission. You can only annoy me, or anybody could annoy me, or anybody could cheer me up, only with my permission. But as I say, a lot of people react on repeat, and what you've got to do is you've got to wake up and change your reaction. So with all this stuff going on in the world, even though at the moment in the UK a lot of these restrictions are being lifted, trust me, you heard it here first, if you hadn't already worked it out, it's temporary. Agenda 21 is nowhere near completion, because it's the 2020-2030 reset, and it's only 2022, so there's 8 more years to come, and trust me, there'll be a 2030 agenda as well. If you want to know where it's really going, we need a conversation. And you can Google it and find out for yourself. There's nothing clever about me. I've researched everything over the last 15, 20 years since I became aware of the corruption in society and government. Because I, like you, put my faith in the government, as a lot of people have done in this current situation, and they've literally been led to the slaughter. They've been led down the garden path, and they're in fear, F-E-A-R, false expectations appearing real, and life's become shit. No one's had a holiday, lots of people have lost their job, many people have died, people are depressed, people are committing suicide, people are down and low. And it's all because of legislation that's come through the politicians that you were told about on television, that was dictated and legislated by government who govern your mentality. So, got 15 minutes left. What do you do about it? And if there's anything I've mentioned that you don't agree with, put it in the comments box below, but be constructive, because I'm offering this with love for your consideration, and I'm never saying I'm right. But I know as a hypnotist that I can create an altered reality for my subjects. In other words, if I tell them the hand's stuck to the head and they buy into it, like I said, if they believe there's super glue and it's stuck to the head, or the hands are stuck together and they can't get them apart, then they will not get them apart. I can tell them, if you like, they've got marbles in their mouth and they can't say the name, or they can't remember the number 3, or the feet are stuck to the floor, or a whole load of other positive or negative hallucinations. And it's great fun, but it just shows the power of an intelligent mind and a powerful imagination. And what you've got to do at the moment in present times, for your health, for your mental health, for your emotional balance, for your physical health, and for your happiness, and for your success in life and business, is switch off all this bullshit. Because by watching it, you're giving it power. And your devices are divisive. We buy these things like iPads and smartwatches, and we live by them. We wake up in the morning, it's probably the first thing that you look at to see if you've got any likes, because everybody likes to be liked. And I understand that, and me too. But you've got a life outside of that. And if you didn't know today that there was a pending war in the Ukraine and that there was a pandemic going on, it would just be another Sunday. And what do you generally do on a Sunday? Well, you enjoy Sunday dinner or not, or you go for a Sunday walk, or maybe you're at work today. But Sunday, for some reason, traditionally, just feels different, doesn't it, to most other days? It's a bit of a special day. Sunday, traditionally, is the day of the sun. How sunny do you feel? Have you got a sunny disposition? Or are you feeling a bit dark at the moment, as most people are? And the sun, the same as everything else, has etymology, like the government is governing mentality, and mortgage is mortgage, which is death grip, and all the other things that I've said, and weekend is being weakened. Your solar plexus in your body, solar plexus is sun center, solar, sun, plexus, place, sun place, place of the sun, and it's Sunday today. And if you look at where you're viewing this, in the videos I've made previously, and also on Mr. GTV, then you'll have learnt that the citrine crystal and anything yellow is associated to your solar plexus, and it resonates at that center, that chakra in your body, and it can harmonize. You can build solar energy, vital energy, life force energy. And so when things are getting you down, like the shit in the world, you can shift and power yourself up. And everything on Mr. GTV and most of the stuff on Mr. Mike Garner, both the YouTube channels and the Facebook pages, or if you had a one-to-one with me, check my website out, mrmikegarner.com, is to empower you. It's to shift you, because the world's shit. And the shit's been accelerating for the last 2 years, and this was the plan. And where it's going, you won't believe. But where you're going, you can dictate. You are the person with a body, and you are the person with a mind, but you're not your mind and you're not your body. You're the witness of both. You're the person sat in the seat watching the film, and you've got to realize that you're the experiencer, you're the witnesser. And I said in session 1 that your life is different from your experience of life. That an event can take place, or you can see a piece of news, and it's how you react to it that will dictate how you feel mentally, emotionally, physically and spiritually. And I really encourage you to check that response. There's a wonderful affirmation, which is, I pause for consideration before I respond. Just delay your knee-jerk reactions. Just delay saying what you're going to say or doing what you're going to do. And just ask the question, is it wise? Is it helpful? Is it honest? Is this the person that I want to be? Do I want to be saying this, doing this, thinking this? And if you don't, you've got an opportunity in that gap to shift. You've got an opportunity to stop running the programs that you're being told by the politicians on television, and to run your own programs, and to take your control back, take your life back, change your life experience, change your experience of the world, and just see it for the shit show that it is. It's just a show. These acts of parliament are just acts, and they're just actors. A policeman or a policewoman, a police person, is just a person in a uniform acting as a policeman, policewoman, police person. When I was an AA man for 32 years, I was just Michael Garner acting in a uniform, doing my job, same as the butcher. It's just a dad or a mum acting as a butcher. Everybody's just acting. We're all basically pretending to be what it says on the badge or our job title. But they've got no authority over you. You are sovereign, you've got authority over yourself. And when you step up and take that authority and step into your power, using techniques that I'm sharing on Mr. GTV and lots of other platforms, you don't have to come to me for empowerment techniques, but take it from me. It's very, very simple to shift. And in that gap that you create between reacting and acting, in other words, not repeating but doing something more beneficial, by realizing that basically it's just a show to control you, don't offer yourself up with compliance to be controlled. Don't break the law, but trust me, none of these things at the moment in the last 2 years have been laws, they've been mandates. And if you look factually at how many people have been prosecuted for breaking these acts of parliament that are not statutes, they're just mandates, very few of them have held up by the Crime Prosecution Service. They are coercing you and controlling you all the time to do what they want you to do. It's social hypnosis. Like I say, they have a behavioural insight team. And if you do it, well, they're winning. You don't even have to protest. You just have to hold your own sovereignty and do what you think is right for you. Be your own best expert. Nobody can make you do anything. What you allow will continue. And that's true in relationships, in jobs, with your kids. If you allow it, it will continue. If you nip it in the bud, it stops. And you can take your power back. So for me, left wing, right wing, same bird, I stop voting. I don't give the news ratings. This is my personal view, you might disagree, but this is Mr. GTV and I'm Mr. G, and I'm going to tell you how I see it. And ask yourself, is what you're doing at the moment, is your belief system working for you? Because you couldn't be far happier if you don't know what's going on. If you didn't know all this legislation and you're looking at it and getting this legislation on smart tellies and smart devices that you're paying for, you're not getting letters through the post anymore, are you? Telling you what you can do, what you can't do, what the rules are. No, you're not. So how would they communicate to you, the government who are controlling your mentality, this global agenda? How would they get that to you if you didn't watch it and comply? You couldn't, could they? So just be less proactive to follow and be more proactive to live your own life and lead and step into your sovereignty, step into your power. If you go to my website, which is mrmikegarner.com, the main things on the front landing page are confidence. How confident are you? Fears and phobias. How much fear have you got? Because the world is dominated by fear and the government is using fear to control people. And fear, as I said in session 1, is FEAR, false expectations appearing real. It's false. I mean, all right, we've just had this Storm Eunice, or whatever it was called, battering the west coast, Western Wales and southwest of Britain. But they were predicting thousands of deaths. Did it happen? Well, there was a gust and there was a high tides and there was buildings blown down. And there was a few losses of life. God bless those people and the families. But what a mountain they made out of a molehill. And look at the computer modelling of the amount of people who would die because of the C word recently, C-19. Hasn't happened. And yet they had everybody queuing up to take the state injectable based on false facts and false information, and they've deleted anybody who's opposing that view. Total control, manipulation by the media, enforced by government to govern your mentality and to put you into fear so that you follow. Like a sheepdog, snapping at your heels so that you get back into your sheep pen. No disrespect, because I did the same to some extent. And if you want to know how far down the rabbit hole I am, then we need a chat. But ultimately, if you allow yourself to be controlled and manipulated against your will, I mean, if you're happy, then you're watching the wrong program. If your life is good, well done, God bless you. But if it's not, and be honest, if your belief system and your past decisions and actions are not working for you, as thousands of people, millions of people in the world are telling me is the truth, because suicides are up, so much despair and mental health, there's waiting lists on the NHS, unbelievable, and we haven't even seen what's coming next in terms of the after effects of the old Jabberwoony. And if you've had that and you regret it, trust me, we need a chat, because you can detox that out of you. But I believe that the answer to this is metaphysical and not physical. As I said, you step back, you detach, you turn off your smart devices, you don't hand over your control to these tech companies that are part of the cabal, that are part of the agenda, that are on the side of the corporations. Those are the people who are the multi-billionaires and controlling the agenda because they're controlling the narrative. And you step up and you step back into your power, you switch all those things off, and you get into metaphysics. In other words, you have an amazing mind, and I said in session 1 that you can put your attention on something and excite it, that you, the observer in the cinema, watching the film, can change the film, you can change the outcome of the film, you can actually select the ending of your life story, which is a film, it's a story. Your history is the past, but what's going forward, you can be the producer and director of that by using your mind. That you have a body and you have a mind, but you're not your body or your mind. You're not your mind because you can change your mind. If you can change your mind, you're the person that can change your mind. You're not your mind. You and your mind are two separate things. And you have a body. And at the moment, you live in your body. But you know that you can escape your body with mental processes and through hypnosis and trance-induced astral traveling and a whole lot of other things that you can do that you don't realise that you're powerful, that you can do. You're all clairvoyant, you're all clairsentient, you're all clairaudient, you've all got the ability to have precognition, read minds, receive information, transmit information. You're not being taught this at school. You won't be taught it at school because it would empower you, and the government and the education authority and the health authority don't want an empowered population. They're hard to control. But you can get that power back. You can learn those things. I teach those things. Other people teach those things. You can reinvent yourself. Humanity is de-evolving. You can actually increase the acceleration of your evolution. It's called transcendence, Kundalini rising. Lots of yogic practices and mental practices and metaphysical and meditational practices will develop your mind to the point where you can have far better health, far more pleasure, ignite your sexuality, ignite your spirituality, and shift yourself as a human being, as a living organism, and ignite a dormant flame within you to get your power back. The government don't want you to do that. Maybe your partner doesn't want you to do that. Maybe your boss doesn't want you to do that. But I want you to do that, and ask yourself, do you want to do that? What are you going to do about it? Because if you, the observer, can change through observation what you're looking at, what in the world would you like to change? Because it's just an experience, it's just a film, and you can direct it. And I can prove it to you, but I won't be able to prove it in this hour. But I'll be putting you through, on Mr. GTV, some workshops, some courses, all for free, that will open some doors that you can explore for free to increase your potentiality. In other words, to increase your power, to give you experiences of things that you've never experienced. And you won't experience in many places that the world provides for you, because the world doesn't want you to be empowered. It wants you to follow a religion and be told what to do with dogma. Most vicars wear a dog collar. That just shows you how insulting that is. I mean, what do you do with a dog? You put a collar on it, give a lead, and you drag it down the road for a walk. Do you want to be dragged down the road for a walk, or do you want to be proud, like a lion, no collar, no dogma, free thinking, powerful, unlimited, no fears, goals, no worries, turn your devices off, live in your own bubble of beautiful, empowering safety and confidence? You can do that. Now we've got 3 people watching me and there's not many comments, and I know Ricky's saying something there. I'm going to buy a caravan and live in a field. Well done, matey. Catherine, my daughter's there, but I'll check all your comments later, and I'm sure that most people will watch this retrospectively, in other words, in the replay. But Mr. GTV is to give you experiences, and there's already, if you scroll back, I started in October last year, so we've only been running 3.5 months. There's demonstrations of hypnosis, there's tarot, there's demonstrations and conversations and all sorts of news and views. It's all there for free. This year, now I'm doing these lives, and there are going to be more of these, so like and subscribe and click the notifications so you don't miss any, and take part. If you've got constructive criticism or positive observation, I'm here for that. And I hope that this has been an eye-opener. I am not anti-world. I live in the world. I've got a smartwatch, I've got an iPad, I've got a motorbike. I enjoy nice food. I live very holistically. on a retreat that I created here in Thailand, and I'm going back to the UK. I was a motor mechanic that worked 32 years for the AA, so I know what it's like to have a job and be in industry. And I was a single dad, so I know what it's like to be a father. And I've had several health issues myself, one that limited me walking for 3 years, spine injury, and I had a mini stroke. So I'm not living in cloud cuckoo land. So I teach from experience, and I share this with love, and I hope you've enjoyed the last couple of sessions, an hour today, just over, and an hour yesterday. And I'm sure it's going to generate lots of conversation, and we're going to develop this, and I'm going to be sharing some real magic clues with you guys for free on Mr. GTV. So thank you for watching. Enjoy your Sunday and be powerful, and just disconnect from the bullshit and shift, and just watch your reactions, and remember what I said, that pause for consideration before you respond. Don't respond on repeat, and ask yourself, really, are you getting what you deserve? Are you living the life that you expected to live? Don't blame the government. They are what they are, and they've always played this game, and it's globally orchestrated. You might not agree with that, but do your own research, and if you want to talk to me about it, then I'll talk to you about it. But be powerful and realise that you have a mind and it's powerful, and when you get to work it, rather than it working you and working against you, it's a fantastic gift. You have a body that can do far more than you've been told it can do, and there's lots of physical pleasures that you're not experienced, and lots of extrasensory pleasures, ESP, that you probably haven't developed, which makes life magical. And if you want to explore that and keep checking back, or contact me personally, you can contact me on any of the contact details where you're viewing this presentation. As I say, I've got a Michael Garner Facebook page, or a Mr. Mike Garner Facebook page, that's the brand, and I'm also on TikTok, Vimeo, Instagram, YouTube, and what else am I on? Well, I'm on them all, because I'm here to help. And you can email me at mike@mrmikegarner.com. So have a wonderful day, be powerful, enjoy your mind, and let's go on this journey together. Come down the rabbit hole with me, Mr. G. Unplug from the matrix and don't believe the bullshit, because it's all an illusion, and you can create your own reality, which is far more fun, far more sexy, far more powerful, and far more fulfilling. Thank you for watching. God bless. Good night.